Hundreds more people in and around Bristol will get NHS care at home in a multi-million-pound plan to ease pressure on busy hospital wards. Former patients are given medical kits to take things like their blood pressure and temperature and then text their stats twice a day to medics. The so-called virtual wards mean patients can be discharged more quickly. Scott Ellis has been to meet a real-life patient in her virtual ward.
Eileen's 96 and lives in Winscombe. She was in hospital before Christmas with pneumonia. She's been discharged early though, thanks to the latest technology. Each day, her daughter takes Eileen's readings at 10 in the morning and 5 in the evening. Details of her heart rate, temperature, blood pressure and oxygen levels are sent via smartphone to the medical team in Bristol, which is overseeing around 75 patients at home like Eileen. It's only 75 people.
75, though, if you think about it, is actually the equivalent of about 2 hospital wards. So you think about having to build 2 hospital wards, that's quite a big undertaking in a short space of time. We want to make it, ideally, within the next 2 years, up to 400 people being cared for in their own homes.
So would you be comfortable me organising some care for you?
The hope is the £3.5 million investment will save money in the long term, freeing up hospital beds and helping patients recover at home, free of the risk of infections on wards. But will this box of tricks ever be better than a bedside doctor?
It will never deliver care, for example, an intensive care unit level of care, but it's about supporting people who should be in hospital because they're acutely unwell and enabling them to have that care within their own home environment with support, both from the virtual monitoring, but also from our clinical staff who will visit the person as much as they actually require it. And that can be up to a couple of times a day.
So what's the verdict on virtual wards back at home in Winscombe?
Well, for me, it's been a wonderful help not having to go to hospital.
She's in the best environment for recovery, and she has recovered as a result of that. And she can physically move around, and I think if you're in a hospital ward, it's not that easy.
And yep, that's your heart rate, well done.
Critics argue that monitoring at home just relieves pressure on hospitals, but then puts more pressure on community services. But cases like Eileen's suggest at-home monitoring is here to stay. Scott Ellis, BBC Points West, Winscombe.
Well, Dr Keelna Bavalia is the medical director for the NHS in the South West. She says our hospitals are still very much under pressure.
Well, it's still very busy across all of the NHS services, including our hospitals. As you mentioned, we know we've had unprecedented demand through that period, Christmas into the new year, with record numbers of people.
And how have these virtual wards been making a difference?
The opportunity to look after people during a period of acute illness in their own home is something that we must be embracing and we need to do more of. I know that's where I want to be when I'm unwell. I want to be at home. It's not for everybody, it's not for every situation, but for where we can properly monitor, support people to recover in their own homes, we need to do that. So it's the right thing for people. For some people in some circumstances, it's also helping some of the bed pressures that we're seeing in some of the hospitals.
For sure. And if they are easing pressure in hospitals, though, isn't some of that pressure then being transferred to communities, to GPs and pharmacies and families?
Well, we are, as part of this work, needing GPs and pharmacies, communities and hospital staff, requiring them to work differently and work together so that we can provide a joined-up care in the way they need it for people at home. It isn't for everybody, as I've said, but for those who do have the support around them, do have family around them, we know that they recover better in their own environment. So it is something that we need to be doing more of.
And recently we've heard about patients ready to be discharged but with no care at home being moved to a hotel in Bristol. Is there evidence that this kind of measure helps?
So this is a newer measure that some areas have taken, and we've seen it work well in other parts of the country as well. I know Bristol has got one care hotel. These are for patients who are medically fit for discharge. They don't need any more particular medical intervention hospitals, but aren't quite ready to manage on their own back at home. So it's an intermediate step, a temporary measure whilst we can support them to get home.
Do you think it might be time for more old-style convalescent hospitals to be rebuilt or repurposed?
People are needing more support. We are getting older as a population with more and more conditions that we're having to manage, health conditions. So there is recognition that we do need to think about how we can support people in that intermediate space as they are recovering from illness or perhaps becoming a little bit more unwell than they normally are, and to prevent people from going into hospital in the first place.
OK, Dr. Keelna Bavalia, many thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you.